As we get ready to wrap up the Holy Week and get ourselves ready for the wonderful message of Easter, the resurrection message, I'd like us to take another look at the cross. And in particular, I want us to look very quickly at the words that Jesus spoke while he was on the cross. There are 7 statements that Jesus made while he was being crucified. He said seven different things, and I just want to go over those, and I'll try to be quick with this and not as lengthy as some of my other videos, hopefully. But the 7 things that Jesus said, let me just go over them with you. And these are in the order in which Jesus spoke them. The 7 last sayings of Jesus Christ on the cross. In Luke chapter 23, verse 34, we're told the first thing that Jesus said was, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And then Luke also, right after that, tells us the second thing that Jesus said. He said to the thief on the cross, "Assuredly I say to you, today you'll be with me in paradise." The third thing that John's gospel certainly records are the words that Jesus spoke to John and to his mother. He said, "Woman, behold your son." And then to John, "Behold your mother." That's the third thing that Jesus said. The fourth statement of Jesus, Matthew 27:46, records, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In the Aramaic, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then number 5, the fifth thing that Jesus said was, "I thirst." That's probably, that is the shortest statement that he made. I thirst. And then number 6, getting close to the end of his time on the cross as he was in agony, Jesus uttered these words, as John 19 verse 30 tells us, "It is finished." And then the last thing he said, and Luke tells us in Luke 23 verse 46, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." I want to just look at number 6 because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what Jesus meant when he said, "It is finished." I mean, let's face it, when you say "it is finished," that could be deemed an utterance of defeat. That could be seen as a sign of someone's defeat. I mean, you could just imagine you guys and ladies that like to watch football. Imagine your favorite team is playing and they're getting trounced. I mean, they're losing. And, by halftime, they are way behind. And then after the halftime, they're still getting beat by even more. You might finally just utter out, even before it's over, you might say, "It's finished. It's over." You can imagine those words, "it is finished." And some people have misconstrued the words of Jesus to mean, as he was saying, "it is finished," that he was saying perhaps, "I'm finished," or "I'm done," or "this is over," almost as a sigh of defeat. But I want to assure you, my friends, today that the words that Jesus spoke, "it is finished." By the way, it's only one word in the Greek, and it is the word tetelestai. Some say tetelestai or tetelestai. I'm just going to say tetelestai. It's the easiest way for me to say it. It is one word that is translated, "it is finished." When Jesus said that, when he said tetelestai, when he said "it is finished," he was not uttering a sigh of defeat, but he was uttering a declaration of victory. And I can show you this. I can prove this to you. This is something, by the way, that's not new to me. There are many authors who've talked about these words or the way in which the word tetelestai was used. And that's what I want to just briefly try to cover. I want to talk about 5 ways the word tetelestai was commonly used in Bible times. The first way I want us to talk about how it was used would be by a priest. Now, of course, there was a Hebrew word that was the equivalent of the word tetelestai, and probably priests would more than likely use that, but sometimes they would also use the word tetelestai. When priests were looking at sacrifices that were going to be offered. As you may recall, all sacrifices that were given at the temple had to be flawless. They had to be perfect. They had to be acceptable. So a lamb that was crippled or had all kinds of deformities or was full of worms or whatever could not be offered. And so a priest would examine a lamb, and he would look at that lamb, and if it was an acceptable sacrifice, if it was a good sacrifice, he would say tetelestai, or the Hebrew equivalent of that word, to say it's complete, it's good, it's a good offering. And so that's one of the ways in which the word tetelestai could be used. Secondly, the word tetelestai would often be used. It was commonly used by merchants, by people who sold things in the marketplaces. In fact, they had stamps, so to speak. When they sold things, they would put a stamp on that sold item, and it would say, guess what it would say? It would say tetelestai. It is completed. It meant that the transaction was done. It's like the sold stamp that you might get on a product. You know, if you were buying something or if something was being reserved, it's paid for. When you get a receipt that you know you've paid for, and they'll stamp it, paid for. Tetelestai. That was the ancient way of saying it's paid for. It's complete. The transaction is done. Thirdly, servants would often use this word, this term, tetelestai. It is finished. If a servant was sent on an errand to do something for his master, and he completed that task, when he was finished, he would go to the master and he would say, Master, tetelestai. It is finished. I've completed what you sent me to do. That is very much how the word was used in Bible times. And then a fourth way that it was used sometimes would be by prisoners, by those who were being set free. So if a prisoner had filled his time, maybe he'd gone to prison or he had some legal obligation, when he was finished with that, the judge would give him a writ. He'd give him something that said on it, guess what? Tetelestai. It's finished. You've done your time, so to speak. You've completed what you had to do. It's really like the word that we call justified. I remember when I was in Sunday school, we were taught that the word justified means justified, never sinned, just as if I'd never sinned. That's what the meaning of tetelestai was very similar to. It meant it's done. Your sentence has been paid for. It's finished. And then the fifth way that would commonly, in which the word tetelestai would commonly be used, would be by an artist or some artisan making maybe perhaps pottery, or picture, if you will, an artist, and he's painting and he's looking at that painting and he's trying to make sure all the colors are there and everything is done. And then as he puts that final dab of color, that final dab of paint on that picture, he looks at it, and guess what he says? He says, tetelestai. Wow, it is complete. The picture's done. My painting, my artwork, it is finished. So when we look at these 5 ways in which the word tetelestai was used, by a priest saying, yes, it's a good offering, by a merchant, yes, it's paid for, the transaction's done, by a servant, yes, I have finished what you sent me to do. By a prisoner, the penalty has been paid. The debt to society has been paid. Or by an artist, the picture's complete. It's done. There's nothing more to be added. What was Jesus saying then? What was Jesus saying? Well, he was saying, the sacrifice I am making is complete. He was saying the debt of man's sin is paid for. It is finished. It's complete. The transaction is done. As a servant, he was saying, I have completed the task for which I was sent. And also he was saying, I have secured the pardon for those who've been imprisoned to sin. You see, we're all prisoners of some kind. Prisoners to the past, prisoners of our guilt, prisoners of the indebtedness of sin. Jesus says, I've secured your pardon. And it's finished, and it's complete. And of course, the picture, think about God's plan for mankind. Think about the great painting, the great tapestry, if you will, the great mosaic of God's plan for man, as in the beginning, as God unveiled his plan even to Adam and Eve, that this one to come would step on the head of a serpent and the serpent would bite him, so he would be injured, he would be critically injured. And that proto-evangelium, the first gospel message, by the way, Genesis 3:15, and that picture that unveiled through the sacrificing of lambs. You know, the Jewish people have celebrated Passover, and of course the Passover lamb, when I see the blood I will pass over you. That was a picture. And just think about all the dabs of, especially the red, the blood, through the Bible. You see the blood, the blood, the blood. And then we come to Jesus Christ, and he dies on the cross, and he utters those words on the cross. He says, "Tetelestai," it is finished. The picture is done. The redemption portrait is finished. Now, folks, does that sound like a cry of defeat to you? Of course not. That's why Good Friday doesn't have to be a time of lamenting. It doesn't have to. It should be a time of, I think, of contemplation. It should be a time for us to think about all that Jesus went through on our behalf. But we know the rest of the story, and we know that Jesus was not defeated by the cross. But as we find out on Easter Sunday, bright and early, he rose from the dead. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. May God bless you as you think about these words, the 7 last words of Jesus. Look them up. And especially that one statement. 3 words in the English, 1 word in the Greek. It is finished. Tetelestai. May God bless you, and happy Easter to all.